Hey folks, and welcome aboard. This is an LGB 2063 model of a Denver and Rio Grande number, I should say of Denver and Rio Grande number 50, the yard switch engine in the later part of its time in Durango. Currently, the prototype for this is at the Colorado Railroad Museum, and originally, if I remember correctly, it came from the Sumter Valley Railroad, so it wasn't even a new purchase by the Rio Grande. This is, of course, an LGB model. And this is my LGB model from back when I was young and did LGB trains. I think I got this somewhere in the mid-90s. It was one of the last LGB engines that I actually had the pleasure of getting. So what we are going to be doing today is a little bit of long-needed or much-needed maintenance. We are going to first of all, replace the traction tire. The traction tire on this engine was completely worn out before this process started, or is completely worn out right now, I should say. We are also going to pull apart the motor assembly and gear train, scrape out as much of the old, dried, gummed up grease that's in there, and replace it with new grease in the process. So, with that said, let's head over to the workbench and take a look at what needs to be done on this engine to get it back into running, working shape. Now, if you saw my last video with the 2090, the little yellow shunter, European-style shunter, then you probably will be at least partially familiar with the process that this goes through. We are going to first start by stripping off the side rods. They are held on by 6mm hex nuts, or hex screws. I am taking them off, I should say, with a 1/4-inch driver. Not quite the right size, that's 6.5mm, but it is the size I have, and these are just metal screws into plastic. They're not like, you know, rusted into, they're not like, you know, rusted into place or something like that. So the nut driver is going to be perfectly sufficient, even if it is not quite the right size. I suspect, given that these have slightly different profiles for the front and rear, that these are going to be, like the other engine I just did, a asymmetric piece, meaning that there's one for the left and one for the right. And now we are going to flip the locomotive on its back, and this one is new enough that it has Phillips head screws instead of hex or flathead screws like I had on the other engine. So we are going to pull the Phillips head screws out, and I am keeping track of them in my parts tray where they are as I go. Now, like with the previous model, we are going to remember that when we remove things, there is a reasonable possibility that, see, there's our 20-plus-year-old dried grease. We are going to do our best to clean out, just so this isn't a greasy mess. Now we are going to remember when pulling these wheels out, wheel sets out, that there is a spring-loaded, I don't even know how I'm going to get to it. This could be a real chore. Or it might not be a problem at all. Looks like I'm going to have to pull. Ooh. Let me just pull the whole, pull that out there. It looks like in this case, we can pull the whole motor assembly out, which could make things easier or could make things harder. Remember, when we take the wheels out, we need to watch out that there is spring-loaded wipers on the wheels. These are captive. Okay, good job, LGB. Nice upgrade. So there's our captive, or there's our wheel sets out. I will go clean those up in a minute. While I am still here, though, I am going to do what I can, not lose anything, but get out as much of the old, rather disgusting grease that's packed in and dried out, and I'm not going to worry about getting all of it. This is actually not in, I'm going to say, horrific condition, but this engine is significantly newer than the engine that I just finished taking apart, which is why it's also probably significantly easier to work on than the engine I just took apart. Okay, so I am going to go take the wheel sets into the other room, clean them up, do what I can to get the traction tire off, because I will need to do that, or remove that, what's left of it, because it's getting replaced. And I will be back in a minute or two. Okay, wheels are clean. Traction tire reapplication time. Again, these are 37.5 millimeter Marklin LGB traction tires, part number E126174. As long as you get the wheel or have the wheel in your hand, these go on pretty easily. Well, I say that as I struggle with these. After washing the wheel, I dry it with a paper towel, and then I hit it with a blow dryer until it is completely dry and free of water. Ah, almost. The struggle in this one is real. I don't think these are the right wheels. Traction tires. Let me double check. So I put a caliper on these wheels and measured them before I started this. Yeah, 37 millimeters. 37.5 is what the outside diameter should be. So these traction tires should be the right ones. I think, honestly, it's the counterweight that's in the way. So let's try. I don't know if this is a smart move. Let's not. Let's just fight with it, because I don't really want to find out the hard way that the counterweight has to be quartered, and I don't want to find out the hard way that it doesn't have a locating pin somewhere. There we go. Just as I'm about to give up. So, traction tire is done. We can start reinserting the wheels into the wheel set. Remember, there are wipers or brushes on each side. We want to get the two parts of that lined up, and we then want to do the power dance. Hopefully. Hopefully this will run. In this configuration. And yes, it will. And my strategy, right, wrong, or otherwise, is that lubrication should not is something you shouldn't try to overdo. Like, it should be lubricated, but it should not be. Okay. So that looks good to me. Everything's got a thin layer of grease on it. So now we are going to reinsert the entire power unit back into the chassis. And then we are going to essentially recorder the wheels or retime the wheels so that they are where they should be. And that looks good to me. And now we are going to put the bottom bracket back, or bottom plate back on. That on. And now we can flip onto the side. We are going to grab a bottle of Labelle light synthetic oil. I'm going to do just a drop on the side rod, because these side rods appeared to be oiled. And then change our screwdriver bit out for our nut driver. That side. There was a small amount of grease that got on there, so I cleaned that up with a little bit of 70% isopropyl alcohol. I don't want anything super, you know, hardcore or whatever. Same deal. Drop of oil. There's probably overkill, but the previous arrangement seemed to be oiled or lubricated. Back the screw out until it drops into the existing threads, and then drive the screw home. See if we can get the last one done. Well, that is obviously a newer engine, but it went together, came apart, went together. The maintenance was way easier than most of the stuff that I've worked on so far with from LGB. So these obviously has to be run a little and get all the lubrication distributed, etc., run in. So that was the LGB 2063, or service work, I should say, on the LGB 2063 locomotive. Back up and running, looks and runs like a champ. I'm glad to have this back in the fleet. Now, if you've been following along with this series for, well, this being the second video, if you saw the first video where I did the LGB 2020, the little yellow, very old electric or diesel, I think it's probably diesel mechanical, but little old diesel shunting engine, in the 5 to 10 years between that engine and this engine, massive upgrades in LGB's production and manufacturing capability. This was far easier to work on than that engine was, although that engine is far easier to work on than some other of the LGB engines that I might be showing, or I will be showing, in this series. So, with that said, I hope you found this interesting, or at least useful. If you have a story or some tips, some ideas, a story about your first LGB engine or an LGB engine that you grew up or really liked, let me know in the comments below. Leave that story down there. Leave your tips down there as well. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.